white working class kids in all but 21 of 3,400 secondary schools. What's gone on there?
Yeah, I mean, this is such a long-standing issue. We've been talking about this for years and years and years. I mean, for me, it's not rocket science. I mean, we moved around a lot when I was a child, so I went to various different schools, some of which were really good, some which were utterly chaotic, and I really experienced the difference.
Yeah.
And of course, the schools that were better were schools that had a lot more structure, that had a lot more discipline, where a lot more was expected of the pupils. And I don't think it's always necessarily the class you come from, because, I mean, when I lived in Johannesburg, because I did go to school there, I was at school with kids who came from the township, super poor, but they had very sort of small c conservative traditional values, and they were under huge pressure to perform at school, and they did. I came to school here, and it was a school also in like quite a working class area, but I would say the school was just overly liberal. I just don't think that the teachers understood that the kids needed structure. They discipline, and you know, it was just wild. I mean, I remember the school was absolutely wild, and the teachers were totally checked out. You know, as soon as the kids started misbehaving, they would just sit back and do nothing.
Wow.
And there's never any expectations on the kids.
Sure.
I mean, that. And I remember going from the school in Johannesburg to the school, it was in the north of England many years ago, and just thinking, how would you ever reach your potential here? I mean, they just expect so little of the kids. I think a lot of it has to do with elites at the top. They have that sort of laissez-faire, liberal culture, which really does affect kids who are poorer and need more. And I know that we this in every area of life. I mean, the Spectator writer Theodore Dalrymple talks about this when it comes to crime. He said, you know, like, if you're in your lovely middle class neighborhood, maybe you can afford to have a liberal, you know, live and let live attitude to things. But if you're in a really poor area where crime is rampant, you need something a lot stricter, and you need people to enforce values.
Yeah. I wonder whether, I mean, there's a shortcut answer on this, Candice, where people will blame a lack of parental input, and clearly some of these kids are coming from pretty tough backgrounds. These are not children from the middle classes. They are working class kids, and not even what you'd call the average working class family, perhaps. These are children that have found themselves in a difficult position, partly because of their background. Workless homes have the lowest aspiration of all groups. Could there also be an issue in, I mean, you just alluded to it, maybe for a different reason. Could there be a teaching issue here, where teachers, in a bid for schools to kind of showcase their kind of virtuous equality credentials, have had too much of a focus on non-white kids at the expense of white working class kids?
I'm not sure. I don't know if I can answer that question, because I can't think of anything specifically. What I do know, if you look at, say, for instance, Catherine Birbelsing's school, which is made up totally of kids from immigrant backgrounds, she says they try desperately to get their kids into her school because most of them come from cultures where there's a lot more emphasis on discipline, order, structure, and they are absolutely shocked at how wild some of the schools can be here, how the teachers just fail to apply those sorts of values.
Yeah.
And, from poor schools really need that. I think it's also what you said as well. You know, you're being 100% accurate when you say that people from immigrant cultures come over and they see their route to success through education. That's how they see it, and they're right. I mean, you think historically, any immigrant group that's come over here, if they've placed total priority on education, that over time they've become more middle class. It absolutely works. Look, I don't want to totally dismiss what you're saying, that that some teachers might focus more on diversity and equality, and that means ignoring working class kids. I mean, that could be happening, right? Like, because you can develop.
Yeah, I don't know either. Maybe it is.
You can develop a blind spot if you stop thinking in terms of class, like so many on the identitarian left have, and you just think that everything is about race, then it can make you blind to the fact that there are a lot of white working class kids who have no privilege. And you will, but you see them as inherently privileged because of their skin color, then yes, maybe that could be a contributing factor. I don't think that is a ridiculous thing to say.
Let's move to this story. This is just broken in round about the last 30 minutes. A man found guilty of religiously aggravated offence after burning the Quran outside Turkey is London's consulate. This was back in February the 13th. Hamid Koskan shouted F Islam and Islam is a religion of terrorism during the protest which took place in Knightsbridge. Today, a judge ruled the actions were highly provocative and partly motivated by hatred of Muslims. Now, this guy obviously, I mean, look, it's a strange... This was not about freedom of speech, although many people said it was. The National Secular Society helped fund his legal case. They said the verdict is a blow to free expression. Others might, not unreasonably, because I always think, you should be able to mock religion as much as you like. In fact, it should almost be taught in schools, bearing in mind these are ideologies that are claiming, whether it's Islam, Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism, all claiming to have the answer to life itself. Now, I think that should be up for as much satire and lampooning as you can possibly muster. And then we can debate it and discuss it. That's clearly central to a society that has free speech. But does that mean you can go around someone's house, call them whatever you like through their letterbox and set fire to their religious book? Some would say, well, that's not really freedom of speech. That's a bit like shouting fire in a theatre. There's going to be a blowback to that.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I see it differently. I mean, I think for me, I look at the American standard, and I mean, there've been quite a few, crazy preacher backwoodsmen who've burned Qurans in America, and everyone just sort of looks at them and thinks, oh, what are you doing? Yeah. That's kind of what I think of. I mean, this guy, obviously did a very extreme thing, but I do worry that we've lost sight of free speech in this country, and it's why so many Americans look at us and just think, what is going on? Especially with this Public Order Act, under which he was charged. I mean, there've been so many amendments over the years. I think it's stretched beyond all recognition to prosecute people for things that they're not really. It's not really in balance with whatever that person has done, and it's not a fair.
But is it asking for a fight, basically? Are you, because it was a public order offence rather than a hate speak offence, or it was none of that stuff. So it's public order. If you stand there in the middle of the street outside an embassy, a Turkish embassy, burning a book, shouting F to individuals or to a religion, then you're only there for one reason, and that's to cause a disturbance.
Yeah, for me, I look to America and I see numerous people have done things like that. Even back in the day, a lot of, people who disliked Christianity used to Bibles and stuff and like these really lame displays of being rebels. I think that we have to cleave very, very strongly to a value of being able to criticize religion, because otherwise you are going to get de facto blasphemy laws. You really, really will. People will use this stuff to try and insulate religion from any form of criticism.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. Is there a line? Should there be any line at all? I mean, you're right. I mean, that's the, meant to be living in a free society. Should there be any line, even if that line is different for some people? But, he didn't set fire to a building. He didn't set fire to an individual. He didn't attack anyone. So on that basis alone, so what if it was a religious book? I totally get that too.